Hi YouTube, my name is Chagozi Madindu and this is Choices with ChiChi. Welcome to my channel. Totally delighted to have you with me, especially because today I'm going to be sharing my experience traveling with children, and I'm going to use my experience to encourage you out there who plans to travel for an extended period of time, either for relocation or for school, and you're thinking of going with your children, then this video is for you. So watch till the end and be blessed, literally, so that you have a seamless flow to your destination and not have to make a lot of mistakes, some of which we made on our journey. Okay, so I'm just going to get right into it. Tip number one, start early. See, guys, the level of organization and structure in most developed countries is nothing compared to where we're coming from, especially Nigeria. If you're planning and you're sure you're traveling with your kids, please start early. What does start early mean? If you're going to put them in school, you want to reach out to the schools, make contact with different schools around your location, your intended location, letting them know the age of your child and what number of hours you want them to take care of your child for, especially if your child is not of the school age. So if your child is like school age in most of these countries, US and Canada, will be like 6. And so if your child is below 6, you want to what you'll be signing in for is daycare. So you want to ask them what hours they have available. You want to share just be having that back and forth communication with them way ahead of time. And this is the reason why the wait list, the wait list is not even a joke. So I remembered when I started the process. So I started the process for my children in August or July. I'm not even sure, but I know that I stayed late. This is something I should have done like March or April. So by the time I was getting across to the classes were already filled. And so they'll tell me, oh, we have reservation for your younger child, but we're not able to take care of your older child. And I'm like, no, please, can't something be done? Nigerian style, when you just meet the principal and you're like, can't something be done for my child? Because I need them to be in the same school. I want to just be able to pick them and drop them at once without having to go to different, locations. And they were just telling me nothing can be done. But you know what? Because one child has already gotten a spot, if another spot opens up, your family will be the first to know. They're very diplomatic and everything, but babe, guy, they are not getting, they can't help you more than they can help you. They're very strict. In Nigeria, when someone wants to help you, they'll be like, I'll speak to somebody on your behalf, or let's just organize it backyard. Your child, probably when they come to count the number of children, I can just take your child out for you. It doesn't work here. Here they do things by the book and they're very organized. So I had a lot of that, issue. I contacted some schools and they didn't even get back to me. I don't know why. So maybe they were full and they just did not feel like wasting, their efforts to be explaining things to me. I still have got across to certain schools that didn't have space for one of my children, and then I still had schools that have had space for them, but it wasn't the same duration. So it's like on Monday you have full care for your younger child, but on that Monday your older child only gets to stay half day. So there were a lot of these things. And trust me, if you're coming and traveling for things like school, it's going to mess up your school schedule. And I'm going to talk about how adult education with children is not even a joke, and how I had to even be going to class with my son once in a while because I came here for studies and nobody asked me, and that's the cross I had to bear, right? So I'm saying start early means if you're also going to have somebody take care of them, you need to contact the person early. So if you're going to prefer a nanny service, start early. They are very structured and nobody can do much for you because they work by the books. Tip number two, please begin now to gather your medical records and vaccination records. Nobody told me this. So you know how in Nigeria we're not really hard and fast about vaccination. What's your own? The day you like, you take your child. In fact, I met someone at some point who said her child was never vaccinated because they didn't believe in it. Fine, whatever works for you guys, okay? But when you're about to make an international travel, have the time. You're going to be asked for your children's vaccination records if you're going to be in schools or in any institution where they would interact with other children. And trust me, it has to be up to date. So I remember that when I eventually got the daycare and the care facility I wanted my kids to be in, they were asking me for their vaccination records. I was like, I just scanned the thing and sent, and they were like, oh, he hasn't taken this dose. He has his vaccination has to be up to date before we can even give him admission. By the time that I was getting this response from them, it was already time to travel. So there was no opportunity to, go to any hospital and take the vaccination basically. And so when we got here, we had to start running around looking for places to take some vaccinations. And you know how vaccines are. You can't take some of them at the same time. You have to like give 6 months break, 3 months. You have to take some 6 months apart, some 3 months apart, some 1 month apart. So it almost messed me up because sometimes if your children's vaccination records are not up to date, some schools will not still take you. So please, I wish I had done this video earlier, especially for people who are coming for spring and people who might be traveling this period. But I'm just hoping you can remedy it one way or the other and just make sure your medical records, yourself and your children's medical records, are up to date. Okay. And I also talk about you, the parent who is coming. I remember I had to, for some of the vaccination requirements my school had, I had to call my mom to say, please, I need my vaccination records. And I had to ask her, do you think I've taken this vaccine? Do you think I've taken this vaccine? It can disorganize you if, especially when these things are happening last minute. So please, back to number one, start early. Number two, gather your medical and vaccination records. Tip number three, Niger educational standard versus American educational standards for children. So when we came here, my son, who was 4 and was on his way to primary 1 in Nigeria, had to be put in pre kindergarten here in the US. This was a child that was already talking about terrestrial animals and how to prevent contaminable diseases. I mean, he was having real educational experiences. Okay, so did they mention 5 forms of child abuse?
Child hawking, child labor, child trafficking, child hawking, and starvation.
And now they brought him back because they are very age conscious in placing children in classes. It was a bit of a shocker because I was expecting them to maybe assess him, give him something to write, tell him to spell, because we had been working on all of that in Nigeria. But they're like, oh, it's so great that he can spell. Wow, you mean he can write? Oh, beautiful. Yeah, but in the US, the decisions about what class to put a child is very much decided by their age. And I was like, oh man. And at some point, my son came back and he was like, Mommy, we don't even do anything. The only thing we're doing in class is writing, is coloring and painting. It was really frustrating for him at some point. But after a while, I think he began to just accept his faith and then settle into the reality of his life. But I know it wasn't funny. While I honestly do not regret the educational foundation he had, I would also say that if it's something you have already foreseen and something you're working towards, please don't be bothered about your child's performance. Let them just come here and meet their mates and start, honestly. But I don't regret it. And while I'm at this point, I want to really give a thumbs up to our educational system. While some people argue that our educational system goes too broad and the American system goes in depth, I still think that our educational system sets us up for success. I believe so. I know that the educational sector as a whole needs a lot of refining and reformations, but honestly, as it stands right now, Nigerian people are really smart. Nigerians are really smart. I'm proud. And I'm going to do a video about loving your Nigerian identity, especially outside of Nigeria, and how we need to take that pride that comes with our Nigerian identity back to Nigeria to build our nation. So that was tip number three, educational standards. Tip number four, deciding on whether to pack clothes, or more food. I've seen a lot of debates on the internet concerning this. So let me start by saying clothes are not exactly cheap here in the US. However, if I have to weigh clothes versus food, I'm taking my Nigerian food with me everywhere. It's in the clothes. The good thing about it here is that their life here is simple. If you can get like three polo, three jeans, you will just be changing it and be wearing jacket on top, and you're fine. But if you're coming here, you're assuming that you will get African store. It's not really the same everywhere. And I'm happy I'm talking about this because I want someone to be prepared for what they are coming in for. So if you don't care about Nigerian food, fine. Fill your clothes, fill your boxes with clothes and shoes and everything that makes you unique and beautiful. That's fine. But for someone like me that likes my swallow and my soup, and I liked my Nigerian spices because to find better pepper here, they scarce. I was glad I took enough Nigerian food. And let me say that just in case, I have a friend that would say, should in case you need a contact for someone who, I have someone who, a reliable source who packages things for people in diaspora. And see, the person will debone dry fish for you. The person will pack better stock fish, snail, periwinkle, isam, ngolo. Ah, if you need the contact, I'll drop the person's contact in the description box below. But guys, really, really, between clothes and Nigerian food, please pack Nigerian food. And let me just leave a bonus point there. I see a lot of people say, oh, don't bring in Maggie because it has chicken. Please. That's why I said, go with my contact. Pound the Maggie, pound it, remove it from the pack, and pound it and turn it into powder and then pack it with Ziploc bags. Nobody needs to know that it's chicken no or chicken Maggie or any of those things. See, I brought snail. I brought roasted snail. I'm sorry. I'm biased. Team food anytime, anywhere. Okay. So I'll generally advise that you bring a lot of Nigerian food. Where I am is so whitey that I have to order for Nigerian food 1 hour away. And I have to wait for someone who is going to church on Sunday. So I can only get my orders on Sunday. Except I'm ready to now do my 1 hour trip going, 1 hour trip coming. And I don't know that I mean, I like Nigerian food, but it's really a lot. So in the city where I am, there is no single Nigerian store. We have to go to another town entirely, to get Nigerian food. So please, please, please pack Nigerian foods and definitely feel free to reach out to me if you need someone to help you package it back there in Nigeria. So my last tip today will revolve around what to do to have a wonderful trip. So I'm talking about the trip itself, how to prepare for the trip and what to do during the trip. Number one, I'll say pack sufficient snacks and cereals for your children. Please. Hey, I knew I packed Golden Mon for my son, my younger son, because he loves Golden Mon, but he finished midway and we were miserable. So because the plain food sometimes tastes weird because it's something they're not used to, kids might be averse to these things and they might not eat it well. Might drink the juice for you and eat maybe the cracker and everything, but sometimes they don't eat these plain foods properly. And so that leaves you needing to compensate them with food that they are more, used to, that they like. So please pack things like plantain chips, biscuits, candies, cheese balls, see anything your child likes, please fill it in your backpack. Plan for the layover. Secondly, as much as possible, let your kids rest, let them sleep. I know that sometimes you want to plug their ears and you want them to feel the whole experience. I'm telling you that if you have long layovers, if you have multiple stopovers, if you if your trip is going to be long, you want the kids to be as rested as possible because honestly, jet lag begins to happen to them instantly. I remember that on the last leg of our trip, my son cried for 2 hours non-stop. It was the most difficult aspect of our trip. He would not just stop. He refused to be pacified. At some point, the attendants just brought like a whole bag of snacks and just gave me out. They were like, maybe like just try and pick something he would like. I was miserable. I think at that point he was hungry and he was exhausted. We had moved from plane to plane. We had done layovers. He was physically exhausted and he was really, really hungry. To control their hunger and to be in charge, please be on top of your game. Give them food. Let them be fully rested per time. And then, lastly but not the least, right? on what to do for the trip, as much as possible, book a seat that is either at the bulkhead. The bulkhead is just directly after the cabin. If your child is really small, you have an opportunity of asking for a bassinet. And honestly, that is amazing. So when your child sleeps, you just put them in the bassinet. Your hands are free and you can really, really sleep. So that's just directly behind the cabin, but you need to prepare ahead of time and call the airline to let them know you're coming in with an infant. I think there's a weight limit for that. So you need to do your research and find out if your child is eligible for a bassinet, but please don't sleep on it. It's an opportunity. It will reserve, as in to help you conserve your energy. It will make you a better, happy parent and to make your child really restful because you don't have to be moving them from hand to hand. You don't have to carry them when you want to pee. You can just leave them there, go and pee and come back. If you have older children, please book seats that are closer to the toilet because having to tell your neighbor, excuse me, every 30 minutes or 1 hour because it will happen. Your kids will drink water, they would drink drinks like juices, and once in a while they just want to walk around. So it'd be good to book like seats that are very close to the toilet. But honestly, for me, the best seats when you're going with children is behind. Sometimes the plane is not full, and so you have extra seats. So you can just pick a whole three-seater, put your kids there, and cover them with blankets, and they are fine. Okay, so bulkhead close to the toilet, but for me the best is at the back of the plane. In fact, most people just already go to the back of the plane when they are traveling, whether with kids or not, because it's easier to find a place to just lie down most times, especially when the flight is not full. And this is like my discovery and my encouragement to you. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's going to be hectic when you arrive. It's going to be hectic throughout the journey. And I'm sure that even planning for the trip is going to be very, very difficult. But I need you to know you'll be fine. And I need you to understand that kids are actually more resilient than we give them credit for. At some point, I felt like my kids were going to break down because we didn't settle in properly. It was very stressful at the beginning. But I felt after a while, I realized that my exhaustion was coming more from imagining how exhausted they were. And so after a while, I backed out and they were fine and I'm fine. So kids are resilient. Your kids will be fine. You will be fine. I think most times it's we the adults who are actually more fragile and we just project our fragility on these children. But your kids will be fine. So I hope these tips have been helpful and I hope you have a smooth journey. If you have also traveled and you're watching this video, please feel free to put in the comments section anything that had helped you on your journey. And then if you have any question, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I'll be happy to engage with you guys. Until my next video, guys. See you. Bye.